As soon as this idea came up, she was dismissed. Just now, she had a preliminary understanding of cultivation after chatting with Su Bangchuwei. She knew that the more spiritual roots, the worse it was. Like the 5 spiritual roots that Xie Sisi just tested, they were the worst spiritual roots, and could be said to be waste spiritual roots. Even if she was lucky enough to be favored by the head of Jianfeng Peak, her future achievements would be limited. Following such a waste, she would never be able to make a breakthrough no matter how hard she tried. It would be better to wait and see what kind of spiritual roots she had when she was tested later. If her spiritual roots are good, she can stay in the inner sect and cultivate with peace of mind in the future. Isn't it better than going to wait for Xie Sisi, the loser? Having an idea, Yan Rushuai took back her foot that was about to step out, and continued to wait with her eyes and nose. Soon, Xie Sisi received a round of gifts, and stood obediently beside the master of Jianfeng Peak to continue the spiritual root test. Zhang Da. 3 spiritual roots of gold, wood and earth, outer sect, EC. 2 spiritual roots of wind and fire. This one is suitable for refining weapons. Put it in our weapon peak, and take it into the inner sect. Su Bangchuwei, single wind spirit root. Accepted to beast peak, inner sect. Su Bangchuwei's eyes widened in disbelief. When he came, his father clearly told him that he had already established connections, and as long as he passed the test, he would be accepted as a direct disciple by the master of Beast Peak. Why is it different from what his father said now? Although inner sect disciples are also considered disciples of the master of Beast Peak, they are far from the status of direct disciples. What is a direct disciple? It is a disciple who is brought by the master and taught personally, almost like his own children. More. Inner disciples are like students in mortal schools, with a teacher teaching on the top and a group of students sitting and listening below. Can these two be the same? Oh, inner disciples are better than outer disciples. The difference is that inner disciples are treated better and the teachers who teach them are also of higher cultivation. Those who teach outer disciples are basically at the foundation building stage. Those who teach inner disciples must be at least at the golden elixir stage. If it weren't for what his father said before, he would be happy to be an inner disciple. The identity of an inner disciple of Tianyi sect is more famous than those of the direct disciples of second and third-rate sects. But with the high expectations before, he couldn't accept it in his heart at this moment, and it showed on his face unconsciously. Because it was the head of the Beast Peak who spoke in person, he didn't dare to question it. He just stood in the team of Beast Peak disciples with a gloomy face. Seeing his expression, the head of the Beast Peak felt annoyed this Su family should be given a good beating. They actually forgot their duty after being treated with a few good faces. The test continued. Soon, it was Yan Rushuai's turn. Yan Rushuai was slightly nervous, lowered her head, and dared not look around. She placed her hand on the spirit stone according to the instructions. A green light lit up in the middle of the stone, and quickly filled up. The emerald green light shot out through the gap between her fingers, as rich as a clear spring. Yan Rushuai was stunned, her mouth slightly opened, and she subconsciously looked up at the immortal masters on the high platform. The person in charge of the test was stunned for a moment, and a hint of joy appeared on his face. Single with heavenly spiritual root. The purity of this spirit root is definitely a heavenly spirit root. Several peak masters and elders were a little moved, but when they thought of her previous actions, they hesitated. The head of Danfeng did not have these concerns and said directly, single with heavenly spiritual root, at first glance. It is a good seedling for alchemy. Don't fight with me for this disciple. I want him. Yan Rushuai was excited, and she knelt down and kowtowed like Xie Sisi. Disciple greets master. Shan Mutian's spiritual root is much stronger than Xie Sisi's useless spiritual root, and her master is also the peak master, no worse than Xie Sisi's master. Before, she was restricted by her family background. Even though she was smart and good-looking since she was a child, she could only serve Xie Sisi, a little kid. Now, regardless of her family background, she has surpassed Xie Sisi immediately. This is the status she should have. This is the life she should have. Thinking about it, she couldn't help turning her head to look at Xie Sisi, but she saw Xie Sisi lowering her head to fiddle with something, not looking at her at all. What a joke! The result that was already known. What's so good about it? If you have that time, you might as well study the gifts you received. Xie Sisi looked at the storage ring in her hand repeatedly with great interest, and didn't pay attention to the subsequent tests at all. This storage ring was given by the peak master of Qifeng. It can be used after being branded with spiritual consciousness, or by dripping blood to recognize the owner. There is more than 1,000 square meters of space inside, which is enough for her to use for a long time. It must be said that being a peak master is generous. An ordinary storage bag is not cheap. The peak master of Qifeng gave such a large storage ring right away. He is really a generous and kind person. Little did he know that the peak master of Qifeng was also bleeding in his heart. With his current refining skills, it is easy to refine a storage ring, but the materials are rare. The materials for refining this storage ring were collected by him for a long time. He originally planned to give it as a gift to his new disciples, but it was taken away by the peak master of Jianfeng, with the previous experience of the peak master of Danfeng. He was afraid that the peak master of Jianfeng would also let the people of Qifeng help with refining for free, so he had to take out this ring to shut up the master and apprentice. After accepting disciples, the head of the sect waved his hand, and the outer sect elders led the outer sect disciples to the outer sect, and the disciples of the inner sect peaks also followed their respective masters to leave. Jianfeng accepted Xie Sisi, such a precious egg. The head of Jianfeng took out his natal sword and threw it into the air, and jumped on it with his precious disciple. From below, the natal sword of the head of Jianfeng was narrow and long. After stepping on it, I found that the sword body was extremely wide, like a small boat, and it was stable to stand on it. Xie Sisi was full of curiosity. "Master, your sword is so wide, how do you fight with it?" As he said, he looked at the palm of the head of Jianfeng. The head of Jianfeng smiled and said, "You look wide because the master used a small magic. When you practice, the master will teach you this small magic." "Thank you, master." Xie Sisi curved her eyes. "What are you thanking for? You are my disciple, and I should teach you. Besides me, you have 5 senior brothers above you. If the master is busy and you can't find him, it's the same to look for your 5 senior brothers. There's only one thing, you cultivators practice the way against heaven, and the hardship is incomparable to the ordinary mortal labor. You have to be prepared." Looking at the chubby, white and tender, short and stout appearance of the apprentice, he was afraid that what he said was too scary and would scare his precious apprentice. He hurriedly added, "But you are still young, so you don't have to work so hard. Just take it slowly and step by step. Others swing the sword 10,000 times a day, and the little apprentice will swing the sword 5,000 times." The head of Jianfeng nodded secretly in his heart. "I feel that I am a good master who cares about his apprentice." Xie Sisi, who didn't know what she was going to face, just felt that the master was too considerate. Although she had a will of steel, her body couldn't keep up. After climbing a mountain, she was so tired that she wanted to fall apart and just wanted to lie down and play. If she really started to practice hard at the beginning, she really didn't guarantee that her small body could bear it. "Let's do it step by step, step by step." He sincerely flattered her again, and then changed his tone and said, "Master, my parents are still waiting for me at the foot of the mountain. Can you send someone to tell them that you have accepted me as your apprentice and ask them not to wait?" The main reason was that she inexplicably occupied the body of the original owner, and she always felt a little guilty. She was not mentally prepared to face the parents of the original body. Otherwise, she should go down the mountain in person to say goodbye to the parents of the original body. "It's a small matter." The head of Jianfeng nodded, took out a paper crane from his sleeve, stretched out his hand and tapped lightly. "Go." A flash of inspiration passed by, and the paper crane flapped its wings and flew down the mountain. "Ah, so magical." Xie Sisi's eyes lit up. Even though she knew that the world of cultivation was magical, she was still shocked after seeing it with her own eyes. This was much more powerful than the magic performed by those magic masters. Looking at his little apprentice's big eyes flashing and shining, Jianfeng Peak Master's eyes flashed with pampering. "Like it." Xie Sisi nodded vigorously. "Like it. This thing seems to be able to transmit sound. It is beautiful, fun and easy to use. How can I not like it? If you like these, take them all. When you practice qi into your body, you can use it by inputting a little spiritual energy into it." Jianfeng Peak Master said, took out a handful of paper cranes and stuffed them into Xie Sisi's storage ring. "Thank you, Master." Xie Sisi smiled so hard that her teeth were not visible. "Having such a generous master, I will be blessed in the future." Jianfeng Peak Master was also very happy. This straightforward and unpretentious money grubber looked so similar to him, worthy of being his apprentice.